Do you know what socialism is?
Becoming and being a socialist country has triumphs such as better resources, lands, and labors, but also tragedies such as slow economic growth, less entrepreneur opportunity, and competition, because socialism means direct control and management of the industries and social services through a democratic government. The dictionary states that socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. The Marxist socialist unions began in the 1850s, which led to Theodore H. White, who wrote a book called Fire in the Ashes, Europe in Mid-Century. One very important quote in this piece is, "Socialism is the belief and the hope that by proper use of the government power, men can be rescued from their helplessness in the wild, cycling cruelty of depression and boom." The Socialism Party in America was then born and grew dramatically through 1900 and 1912. Under the leadership of Eugene V. Debs in 1912, there were 160 councilmen, 145 aldermen, 1 congressman, and 56 mayors. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Berkeley, California, and Schenectady, New York were elected as socialists.
At this time, socialists had published 300 newspaper articles such as The Appeal of Reason. This was a Kansas-based publication which had 700,000 subscribers, and the membership in the Socialist Party was totaled out to 125,000. Debs was converted into socialism while serving jail time for the part in the Pullman strike, which was in 1897. Then they began to edit The Appeal of Reason. This is a picture of Eugene V. Debs from 1900 to 1920. He went and ran for president on the socialist ticket. He increased the membership to the Socialist Party tenfold.
Then Debs insisted that he was a Marxist. He ended up speaking more freely about poverty and injustices than what the typical socialists were concerned about. He discussed things like the class struggle and the dictatorship of the proletariat.
In 1912, Debs ended up receiving 900,000 votes, which is about 6% of the presidential votes of the cast that year. Debs appealed to the blue-collar workers' hunger for the improved working conditions and some higher wages, but also intellectuals such as the author Jack London and Upton Sinclair.
With the President Theodore Roosevelt and through the 20th century's first years, the progressive movement came into view with its belief in the perfection of man and in an open society where the mankind was neither the chain to the past nor condemned to a deterministic future, one in which people were capable of changing their condition for better or worse. This is stated within the movement. Socialist pay was included within the progressive movement. Finally, the party dealt with American problems in an American manner. Unlike the Communist Party, the Socialist Party at that time felt no obligation to adhere to the international party line. In 1911, there were 18 socialist candidates for the mayor, and they nearly won against Cleveland, Ohio, and Los Angeles, California in the mayoral races. This is a picture of Upton Sinclair. In 1905, Upton Sinclair founded the Intercollegiate Socialist Society. Lively young men and women discussed the new gospel according to St. Mark's. The universities were then considered to be favorable ground for the progressive thought. This officially began to make the Socialist Party membership to decline as some of the members began to cast their votes.
Let's take a look at Venezuela. It's one good example of a socialist country.
This clip is from January 24, 2019, courtesy of CNN 10, when Venezuela's government shut down, causing starvation around the country. People were suffering from lack of food, digging in garbage disposals for possible meals.
People are getting so devoted into socialism that it is wrecking their society and bringing their country down as a whole.
Let's take a look at Venezuela's history. In March 2013, after the president Hugo Chavez died from cancer, his preferred successor took office, Nicolas Maduro. Hugo Chavez won over the country's poorness within the 21st century socialism during the 14-year rule.
In December 2015, for the first time in 16 years, the opposition Democratic Unity Coalition won over their legislative body, which was the National Assembly. This caused a popular discontent and a prolonged recession and rising inflation after oil prices collapsed.
In March 2016, Venezuela's Supreme Court, which was mostly subsided with the ruling of Socialist Party, announcing that it's taking over the National Assembly. The court quickly walked away from the decision due to the international breakout. Events sparked months of anti-government protests, left more than 100 people dead. Months of fighting and disagreement in the government and timing of the elections go by.
On November 8, 2018, the United States Refugee Agency reported that 3 million people fled Venezuela due to a massive shortage in food and medicine.
On January 10, 2019, people living in Venezuela took the streets, protesting for Maduro to step down as president. The United States quickly showed support for Guaido as president. Maduro has blocked all attempts by the United States and other countries to help aid the people suffering. Workers in factories in socialist places work together. Workers' goods are owned by the government, then the government returns goods back to them. The government determines the wants, needs, resources, people, and competition, and dictates the factories, which are the places of production. The government controls everything.
This map from 1911 to 2011 shows the most Eastern countries tried or are socialist countries, colored in red. The pink color indicates informally socialist countries.
The countries of socialism want to have an equal amount of money and an equal amount of rights in the society.
This statistic shows the results of a 2018 survey conducted in 28 countries around the world on socialism. The respondents were asked if they agree or disagree with the notion that socialism is of great value for societal progress. This statistic shows those who somewhat of strongly agree with this statement. Some 84% of the respondents in China agreed somewhat or strongly with that statement.
Most countries, as seen, have failed in becoming a socialist country, or are failing now because of it. Socialism has tragedies such as slow economic growth or lack of work effort.
On the other hand, there are triumphs to socialism, such as every citizen will have access to education and health care, the society will have no social classes, and allows equity in health and earnings.
Israel was a socialist economy up until 1985. After that, it transitioned from socialism to capitalism, which was successful. But now there are side effects from the transition. Today, Israel is the 19th ranked country on the UN Index of Human Development.
In the first decade, Israel was a welfare state, taking in millions of immigrants and establishing hundreds of communities. During the town development in the 1960s, massive infrastructure construction drives had grand projects. Although during the time of building the state, the government was managing the exchange rate, bank credit, and foraged trade, there was a growth in immigration and population, which created demand for housing, food, trade, and services. Of course, Israel could not finance the growth, therefore they took in other countries for help. They received loans and grants from the United States, repatriation from Germany, and donations from Dizapur jewelry and Israel bonds.
This was the birth of cronyism, nepotism, and the black market. Cronyism is the partiality to an associate or friend, nepotism is the partiality to family, and the black market is an illegal trade or traffic such as drug trades, prostitution, or human trafficking.
Sadly, Israel started to sink. It started with the global oil crisis and the Yom Kippur War, which only ended in the mid-1980s. Defense costs ate up 30% of the gross domestic product. Inflation accelerated into triple digits and even worse effects. The government became even more deeply involved in the economy. The economy was open to imports. The currency market was liberalized. The government exited the capital market. The budget deficit was slashed. State-owned enterprises were privatized, and the price controls were eliminated.
Israel is now among the 25 countries in the world on a GDP per capita basis. Its financial markets are stable, inflation is close to zero, and unemployment is at a record low. If Israel still has problems of excessive rates of poverty, income inequality, uncompetitive markets, or other problems, they just may have the resources to address them. Israel is just one example of a successful, efficient, socialist country. Education is available for everybody, and people will be able to meet their medical needs because healthcare costs will be more affordable. If the government owns hospitals and healthcare services, they will be low in cost or even completely free.
Taxes will also be different. The higher the income, the higher the taxes. With that system, it will be easier for low-income employees to budget their earnings, and those who earn more will still have money left to spend.
Prices will be regulated and more affordable for people, unlike capitalism, where private business owners and suppliers can demand high prices for their goods and services.
Some countries that are democratic socialist countries in 2019 or present time are Denmark, Ecuador, Finland, Germany, the Netherlands, Peru, and Venezuela. Another tragedy is that there is close to a 100% chance that socialism has failed in countries that have tried to be socialist countries. Most people say that socialism hasn't always failed, it just has never been done properly. If this is so, what would be the proper way to do socialism so we can fix these countries that are falling apart? As a matter of fact, democratic socialism has actually succeeded in more places than it has failed, meaning that it is possible to be successful in the socialist world, although it is usually only if you are a democratic country with socialism rather than just a socialist country. Socialist countries have their triumphs, such as better resources, lands, and labors, but along with it tragedies such as slow economic growth, less entrepreneur opportunity, and competition. Socialism shows that countries can work together and be united as a nation, whether the country fails or succeeds from their decisions.